2 years. That is how long it took for Pet Simulator 99 to be released. 3 months. That is how long it took to develop Beastform Simulator. 4 months of around 5 people developing. That is how long it took for Souls RNG to be developed. All of these popular games had multiple people working on them for months, if not years. But what if I, a single developer, tried to make a game in 1 week? Would it be possible, and what would the result look like? Join me in the entire development process from the idea to the finished game concept as I tried to make a game in only a single week. First of all, I needed a good idea for what to even make. And after a bit of tinkering, I decided that what would probably be best to do would be something with a King of the Hill system. After some more tinkering, I decided that a good approach would be to have 3 hills and a system where people could buy weapons that would stay temporarily. I also thought a similar system for cars would be good to have, where in this case maybe the cars would have turrets. After this creative process, I decided to start work. But first, let's set some rules in place for myself. For the first rule, I only have in total 7 days where I may open the project and do any progress on it. Secondly, I must do everything in the process myself, no using other people's images or anything like that. And finally, I also can't have somebody help me with it. With that in mind, I selected a good day for day 1. On the first day, I decided to start off by knocking off some core game mechanics. I started by trying to create a King of the Hill system and got some decent progress. To test the system, I would have to have a currency strip though, so I decided to copy one over that I have made already. There is a tutorial available on my channel for that. When I had added a currency strip, I instantly wanted to test the game, but of course, I forgot to enable Studio access to API services. Yeah, I forget that every time. From testing, I had to find out that my strip just didn't work, so I went for the option to also use the one I had already created. I also made a tutorial for that one. After I copied over all the necessary components, I tested the system and saw that it worked. After I used the system to add 2 more hills to end up with 3, I tested it and it didn't seem to work. After some trial and error to fix it though, it all functioned correctly. Next up on my list of things I needed to do was a shop with temporary items so that I got to work on designing the UI. After around 30 minutes of designing the shop, it all looked as good as I would be able to make it, and I started working on the functionality. When I wanted to test the functionality of the shop, I just noticed that the King of the Hill system didn't work. And when I tried finding the problem and tested at some point, it just worked without me having not even changed anything, but I'm happy that it works. Finally, I decided to create the car system. After a whole lot of developing and errors, the car system also worked, so I decided that I had the core functionality done, it was time to work on the map. For the map, I decided that I would try to make more of a classic Roblox style, and a little while later, the day was over. On the second day, I started by working on a map, because it was far from done, but I got bored not long after. And instead started work on a money per kill system. This system should work along the lines of you kill somebody and get 10% of their money. This value was stored in a module script for easy changing, and after a bit of work it functioned. So I started making a system where the player can set who they can damage. Making the system was actually very simple, as it mainly relied on the weapons used lighting it, and after around 30 minutes it worked. I also decided that I should start modeling some weapons, and for the weapons I decided making 1. a minigun, 2. a regular pistol, 3. a shotgun, and finally for the 4th a sniper. And with that the day was over. On day 3 I decided that I had to get some good progress or else I wouldn't be able to complete the project, so I first started off by continuing on the weapons. After I finished modeling the weapons, I imported them into Roblox Studio. I continued work on the weapons by implementing them in tools so that they should be equipped and making the handle offset be correct so that it looked normal how they were held. For the minigun, I had decided that it must have a shooting animation where the individual barrels would recoil and they would spin. And after a bit of work, all weapons but the minigun could be held correctly. So I started to implement them all in the shop. And after having implemented all the weapons but the minigun into the shop, I returned to working on the map. After I had completed 3 hills in the map, I had the idea that because there was a big open space, I could probably in the future make a cool event where a volcano would spawn there. I decided that the map could use some decorations like rocks and trees. The rocks were just 2 cubes on top of each other, and the trees were a big green block on a brown trunk. I also created a second variant of tree where it had an additional branch. Then I just repeatedly copied and pasted these decorational objects to make a map a bit less bland, but as usual I could not stay working on the map for too long, so I decided to try and make the rocket launcher work. I first tried an attempt where the weapon would spawn a projectile that was not affected by gravity and would get launched at the target and explode on impact, but after trying to make that work for a literal hour, I decided to try Tween Service. After making the decision of trying Tween Service, it only took around 15 minutes to make it work, which kind of made me wonder if I'm stupid to first spend 4 times as long with something that in the end just didn't work. After a little bit more coding, the rocket launcher also fully works like I used to make the pistol work, which after some pain of not understanding why stuff didn't work, I somehow managed to make it work. Finally, I decided to try work on the shotgun, which I had completed after an, in my opinion, impressive time of 8 minutes. And for the last dinner of the day, I returned to working on the map. And after some more time, the day was over. I decided to start off day 4 with something I hadn't done before. Something truly unique. Something to have new energy to continue on the game. Something you would not at all expect. I completely work on the map. I wasn't able to stay concentrated on the map for all too long, so after a while I started making the weapons compatible with the system of not being able to damage certain players and the system for money on chill. I had also decided that something the game needed was this force shift lock with a custom cursor to make it seem more like a fast-paced shooter, so I decided working on that. A problem with the force shift lock would cause on the desktop would be that you could press the buttons for the shop and the immunity list, so I decided to make them be openable through key presses. I decided that the immunity list would be openable through Q and that the shop would be openable through E. And after a little bit of work, it all functioned. I also decided that it would be cool to add some rings that would go around the areas where you should receive money on the hills, so I opted to Blender and design some rings. After I had finished the red ring, I exported it and imported it into Roblox Studio and positioned them correctly. Something else I decided would be good to have was that while standing on the hill it would show you where you received money, so I designed a simple frame that showed you the amount of money you got and made it so it would appear while standing on the hill. While testing it though, I noticed that the Chain of the Hill system was not functioning correctly though, and after fixing some stuff on it, it also worked. Something I thought would be cool for the system would be that if you were to respawn, then you should select a position on the map and you would spawn in with a parachute, so you should spawn in the drop down whilst firing your gun or something. After spending a literal hour of trying to figure out why a remote event would only fire once, but not any more times under the exact same conditions, I opted for the a lot more simple solution that worked just as well, being to enable the reset on spawn property in the GUI. And after thinking and trying for around 20 minutes, I also developed a formula that would be used to allow the player to teleport to the position on the map that was adjacent to where they clicked. After that was done, I returned to working on the map, due to it still not being finished. The last thing I would get to doing on this day would be to start working on a parachute model for if you drop down. I started day 5 by making the minigun. To make the minigun, I first grouped the main part of it and each of the barrels into a model and then inserted a humanoid. As I already said, I wanted to animate it, so I took this model into an animation editor, and after some confusing issues I managed to make a simple animation where always the top barrel recoils, and when it is back in place all barrels switch position and it seamlessly repeats. After experimenting around a lot with ray tracing and basically losing my mind over it, I for some reason switched to origin with the direction, and that somehow worked. This shouldn't have worked because that would normally result in the ray trace going backwards, but at this point I was just happy that it worked. An issue that still existed for the force shift lock was that you would be able to zoom in, which I thought wouldn't make sense to be able to do, so I went into the starter player directory and modified the minimum zoom and maximum zoom to the same number, and it worked. As the map was still not done, I decided to return working on it and decided that for now, in the big open space, I would create an infinite waterfall going into the void. In the middle of me working on the waterfall, suddenly Roblox just crashed for no reason. Something I also did at some point was that the floor on the water was very bouncy. As all of this, I had the idea that it would be smart to have a system that gives every player money every now and again, just so it was never really over. I also made so that premium players get a bit more money than non-premium players ones, just because I also get money for them playing. The last weapon I still had to make was a sniper. For this, I thought I should just make a cursor spanning the entire screen with a hole in it, but for some reason I would not ever be big enough, so I also decided for black frames around to fill in the rest of the screen. And with that, day 5 was over. On the second to last day, I started by doing some random fixes, like fixing elements on the map and other stuff. I was also starting to get fed up with the default lighting, so I messed around with it until I had a result I liked. Something I also added was a day-night cycle, but I first made the mistake of putting the script into lighting, which made it not function. I only found out that caused the issue after looking at my tutorial on how to do it. A big issue that was still there was that I had literally no sounds. The only sounds that could ever be heard would be the walking sounds, which was very anticlimactic. I hopped into online sequencer and created a noise order and put that into a voice changer and added effects until it sounded remotely close to a gunshot. After I imported it into Roblox, I started adding it to the weapons that for some made the sound be differently long, which especially made the rocket launcher sound good. Something I also added was a button where people could insert ideas into a list that I could conveniently reach to find the suggestions. I made this list because I feel like that it is the best way for people to submit ideas and bugs we found in the game. An issue I encountered whilst working on the suggestion menu was that if you made a text label be white, then the text would become invisible if the label also contained a UI gradient. Roblox, please fix this. I also added a menu for myself where I can check the suggestions and remove them with a press of a button. Something to note is that when you submit a suggestion or an error, it also records your user ID so that if someone spams the button or just submits jokes, etc., then I can conveniently temporarily ban them. After around 1 hour and 40 minutes, I finished the entire suggestion GUI and the GUI where I can check submitted suggestions and bugs, and with that the day was over. Some of the last things to do for the game feeling complete were that the images in the shop would be there, so I directly started with that. I copied all the weapons, meshes, and put them in front of a green wall. Then I would always take a good angle and take a screenshot and remove the green in the photo editor. After I had done that for all the weapons, I also took a screenshot of the entire island and also removed the background there and imported it for the select position to drop down. I also had to make the select spawn pause button be square, which made the glitching to the map position ratio be off, so I had to fix that. After I fixed the ratios, I finished the parachute. For that I just made when you glitch it adds the mesh to your character, and on the client makes the gravity be really low, and that if you touch the floor, the gravity would return to normal and it would remove the parachute for you. And with that, the last thing I had to do was add music to the game. I had decided that I would want the background music to be more heavy metal styled version of Vivaldi's Four Seasons. After having put an editable music file, I switched the instrument to electric guitar and bass, split the song into all 4 seasons, and exported it. A rude awakening was that Roblox has a sound file length lower than my song's length, which meant that I would have to split them up. After a quick research, I found that apparently the Roblox sound file max length was 7 minutes, so I decided to divide my first file into one 7-minute part and the rest. Stupid was only that when I tried to upload the 7-minute file to Roblox, it said too long. Thanks internet for being wrong. After that I decided that it would be smart to try a 5-minute length, and that worked. Finally I created 8 sound files and imported them. After a bit of coding, I had them implemented to play and cause the grass color to change with every different song. I had the grass color change color because I thought it would be cool to have the grass change color according to season. Some examples would be that in spring the grass would become some type of light green, in summer the grass would turn darker green, in autumn the grass would become more some type of a reddish orange, and in winter the grass would turn into a type of white. After I had implemented the code for that, to cause this, I went to test the game only to find that everything was broken from my character to the sounds of the music. By broken, I meant non-existent. The reason for this was that I had gotten a warning from Roblox for the 5th sound file, literally 5 minutes after its publishing. I don't understand how this was possible due to the fact that it was 5 minutes long. For some reason the warning stated, "It is not allowed to upload sound files excessively long or depicting screaming." Does this sound loud or like screaming to you? After I reactivated my account, I was pleased to find out that it all worked like intended, just in time for the end of day 7, the last day. Well, now what? I have no time left for the game, but at least I am mostly finished. With mostly, I mean I got the game playable and decent. Some things that I had now noticing that would be missing to the game are a proper interpretation for cars. I hadn't really had time to fix all the mistakes in the map. Opening certain GeoIs whilst opening other ones breaks the cursor. I should have used IT or something to make some of the weapons be held two-handed. Getting money from the Chain of the Hill system isn't really satisfying because there is literally no sound to it. You wouldn't really be able to notice if you got the money over time because it whether has a visual effect nor a sound effect, and a bunch of other ones. But after all of this, I think I'm happy with what I have achieved. If this isn't the first time you see my channel, then at the time of making this, you would notice that I usually make tutorial videos. Now after 75 videos, some better, some worse, you would probably think that I would have completed at least one game, right? Well, that just isn't true. This is my first game that I could actually in some way call complete. Now it isn't the first time I tried to make a full game, but usually I for some reason stop work on them before they only got close to this complete. Usually I would stop for various reasons, but that would make it seemingly impossible to get the mechanic I was hoping to make, losing interest in the project over time, not enough knowledge to continue on the game, and finally the probably most common one, I would be making another project mainly for tutorials, and that over time I would forget entirely about the game. But having said all of this, that by no means means that it didn't help me. With every project I started, with every bug I faced, with every dev forum post I read to solve an issue, I learned. And every time I knew more than the last. And after all of that, it amounted to what I know now. Enough to teach over 186 people new things in Roblox coding, and enough to at this point complete the game. If you want to play the game, unfortunately did not release it yet for once June is its public. A lot of the features I traded this game I actually made tutorials about, like the Chain of the Hill system, the car spawner system, the currency system, the money over time, the shop system, and a few others. If you're interested in making these yourself, then feel free to check out my channel, where I'm currently uploading tutorial videos weekly and sometimes some other stuff like this. I do have some fairly big plans for this game, including player-led NPCs and a clan system. And with that, I'm pretty sure I have said everything I want to say here. Bye!